Today, as promised, I want to show you what we can do with the scraps that we generate when we make a braided twist runner. I found my spot-on tool that I made several years ago is the perfect companion. For a long time, this little guy had been my go-to tool for cutting up various scraps, but the shape of the tool just fits perfectly with the braided twist, as I'm going to show you. The spot-on tool comes on a card that has all the instructions right there ready for you to make this runner. But there's other things you can also make. There's the cubics, which you can see that three-dimensional look, and that's achieved without a Y seam, so that's really cool. It's all strip pieced. We have the high steppin'. I've used patriotic colors, which would be great as 4th of July comes around, but it makes up wonderfully in other colors as well. We have the celebration of 6, which makes a wonderful table topper. And we have a table runner called the Petal Pizzazz. All 3 of these are in the Weekender style, folded cardboard pattern, reasonably priced. Next, I have 2 scrap projects to show you. Various hexagons first, then fast and easy pinwheels that will follow. Now, if you prefer to go straight to the simpler pinwheel, you can fast forward to the hot pink page and it'll say pinwheel, or you can see the number below this video. Once again, I have my braided twist tool on my rectangle and I'm going to cut along the outside edge. This is the half circle that we'll be using for our table runner, and here are our scraps. Fold that in half. See that shape? Now we're going to use our spot-on tool. Place it here on the corner, cut here, and we'll cut here and here. As I'm cutting my half circle pieces, many times I stop right then and cut these little guys because that reduces all of this bulk. And I have a plastic bag, look at this, just full of these pieces from my projects. Here's a spot-on piece using the K fabric from the cover table runner. I've also cut a piece of just a lighter fabric to give me good contrast. Okay, so I'm going to put those 2 together and sew those like this, and I'm going to sew here, which is what I've got here. Now I open this up and I open up the seam allowance like that. We'll press it. When I've got a piece like this, then I'm going to take, this is another scrap from that table runner on the cover. The spot-on tool on this corner is a 60-degree triangle. Align it to the edge of our fabric like this and cut around. When we've opened this up and pressed it and we've cut our triangle, we're going to place it on here so that this point is centered and it's exactly along the edge of the line. So you can check it from the back side. We're going to sew 1/4 of an inch. When I sewed this 1/4 of an inch seam, I did pin because it's so easy with such little pieces to get that skewed. So 1/4 of an inch seam, pressed it. All these seam allowances just go towards the top. That's fine. They don't have to be opened. And now I will take my spot-on tool and line it up with a T3 line and my edges and trim. Here's the triangle now that it's trimmed. I will take 2 of these, put them together like this. So I've got them here, I sew, I open it up, and I press. Then I'm ready to add a 3rd triangle. When I put the 3rd triangle on, I use the little ear, the little seam allowance from the first one to help me line this up just right. And I always pin here and I sew that together. When I have that sewn together, here's my half. You can look at the back. I've pressed all my seams open. My 2 pieces comes 1/4 of an inch in and I have that triangle. Okay, now we have our 2 sides sewn together. For this project, I do want a hexagon, and so I'm going to put the 2 together. I will place a pin right through where those seams intersect so that matches. I'll place a pin here and here where these match, and then sew that seam together. Here's the block sewn together. Notice that the sides match, as does the center. The hexagon by itself is the perfect size for a pot holder or candle mat. This one was made from the scraps of this runner and placemat. So with all those scraps, I'll be making lots of these pot holders. Here is a hexagon made with the A and B fabric from the runner on the cover of the book. Here's one where I used A and K, just a different color contrast. Here's one from a runner that's in the book with a gray background. One thing I can do with the assembled hexagons is sew them together to make a chain. Just the chain alone can make a nice little table topper. Here's a diagram of the hexagons tiled out and made into a quilt top. Another way to assemble these three is to rotate them instead like this. Now when we do that point to point, we have this open area that you can fill in with an equilateral triangle. Now here's a diagram where the hexagons are placed tip to tip and tiled out. So can you see there's just lots of possibilities? Now let's look at the spot-on pieces differently. I'd like to show you the pinwheel. This is a spot-on I cut with the scraps from this table runner. I wanted higher contrast, so I cut the same shape with a contrasting gray print. I have these two, and notice that they don't go together like we had in the hexagon. Instead, we're going to bring this around and sew it together like this. When we put these together, we should have a little triangle that's 1/4 inch on all three sides. But we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. Here are 4 blocks we've made this way. You could sew these together like this and make a border, or you could rotate each one around like that. That might be a really interesting border. Kind of another way of doing a sawtooth. What about making a block? Well, let's take this one here, take this one and move it around, take this one and move it here, and over here. Now you've got a pinwheel. Here it is sewn together. Here's the block that I made earlier. Can you see the difference? They're mirror images. If you go back to our original pieces that we had when we cut the half circle, they too were mirror images. So one of these was cut with this side, one of these was cut with this side. If they aren't mirror images, when we put it together, we get this look. And this is what it looks like when I expand that into a quilt. Now, let's go back to this one. Let's see what we can come up with where we rotate from this one. So on the next one, I'm going to come here and then come here.